Good afternoon. Yes, the American newspaper industry, as David alluded to earlier, the American newspaper industry is certainly in crisis. Every newspaper newsroom is haunted by the empty desks of staffers that we've laid off or bought out over the past 3 years. We have fewer pages, fewer resources. But we ink-stained wretches are a stubborn and feisty lot. Those who write our premature obituaries do so at their own peril. We're fighting for survival not only because we love what we do, but we believe that what we do, what we think of as newspaper journalism, thorough, facts-based, vetted, enterprising, ethical journalism that knows no fear or favor, whose primary objective is to shine the light on dark corners where powerful people and institutions like to hide things, that kind of journalism is essential to our democracy. We're not too hung up on the mode of delivery. Newspaper journalism can be ink on newsprint, it can be electrons on a computer screen or on an iPhone. In fact, and many people are surprised to hear this, in 24 of the top 25 markets in America, the top trafficked local news website is the daily newspaper. We really don't have an audience problem, but we have a very significant revenue problem. Our profits, if we have any at all, have shrunk at an astounding pace. At most newspapers, the decline in advertising revenues is in the range of about 40%. So we as newspaper editors find ourselves in this agonizing quandary. On one hand are these economic realities with which we must contend. On the other is the recognition that we must preserve that one thing we do that's both our greatest expense and our greatest value to the public, the thing for which people continue to come to us for and depend on us for. My own method of dealing with that quandary in Seattle has been to measure each potential journalistic undertaking by one simple question: what good does it do? If a story is going to take many months and many dollars to report and to publish, what are the chances that it will have a positive impact? Will it make a difference? Will it change the world? By that measure, I would have been so very proud to have published the article that won this year's Grantham Prize for Excellence in Reporting on the Environment. And I am indeed proud to present the prize on behalf of the Grantham Foundation, the Metcalf Institute, and my fellow jurors. The winner is The Smokestack Effect, Toxic Air in America's Schools by Blake Morrison and Brad Heath of USA Today. This is a truly remarkable piece of journalism, one that marries the values of traditional investigative journalism, all of those values that I spoke of earlier, what we think of as newspaper journalism, and the promise of the technological tools of this century. Like most good investigations, this one began with a simple question: how is industrial pollution affecting school children? Blake, Brad, and their editors were struck that this was a question no one appeared to have asked, and certainly not to have answered. They began by compiling tens of millions of records from more than 24 sources to create one of the most extensive online databases any newspaper had ever constructed. That database melded government data on more than 20,000 industrial polluters with the locations of some 128,000 public, private, and parochial schools. Although the Environmental Protection Agency has a special office for children's health, it had never even attempted to answer this question. USA Today used the EPA's own models to address it. Blake and Brad teamed up with researchers from the University of Massachusetts, Johns Hopkins University, and the University of Maryland to explore the issues of toxic exposures. Using EPA models, they found thousands of instances where the air outside schools appeared to be at least twice as toxic as the air in nearby neighborhoods. In some cases, that air was 10 times worse. Remarkably, their newspaper then dispatched 30 reporters to monitor the air at 95 schools in 30 states. Blake and Brad followed up on that data analysis with hundreds of interviews that educated them and enabled them to educate their readers. The result was a series complete with a riveting online presentation that Senator Barbara Boxer, who chaired the Environment and Public Works Committee, called, quote, a shocking story of child neglect. But as shocking as some of the findings were, the real strength of this project, the aspect that we Grantham jurors found most impressive, was the intelligence, depth, and reserve of this project. Unlike so much of what passes as an investigative journalism these days, particularly in the environmental realm, they did not overstate their case. They went to great lengths to caution against conclusions about causation of cancer and other diseases, and they explained how environmental forensics works. So back to that question, what good did it do? In this case, the story did plenty. It prompted the EPA to launch a $2.25 million program to monitor the air outside 63 schools in 22 states. This was the first time the agency had undertaken such an effort. And as USA reported just last week, that study has already found outside 15 schools in 8 states elevated levels of a substance that was used in chemical weapons during World War I. The head of EPA's Children's Health Protection Office was replaced. Concerned citizens who'd responded to the story sent more than 8,000 letters to their members of Congress. When she launched this new monitoring program, EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson directly cited the USA Today series, saying, USA Today did what investigative journalists do, which is to find a problem that needs answers. We salute these two reporters and their editors for this extraordinary work, because it represents an extraordinary commitment of resources at the most difficult time. It is my honor to present the 2009 Grantham Prize for Excellence in Reporting on the Environment to Blake Morrison and Brad Heath of USA Today.
That's a very heavy prize. Very nice, thank you. We're going to try to tag team this, so wish us luck. And we're as good at PowerPoint as everybody else was, I think. Something's supposed to swoop in about now. There it is. Very good. First, thanks to David and to the rest of the jurors and to the Metcalf Institute for the seminar and the prize, and to the Grantham family. This is an incredibly special time for us, and we can't thank you enough for honoring us. A lot of people here deserve praise, and so let me start with the people at USA Today. Ken Polson, who I think mentioned earlier, we ran him out of the building. Ken was extremely supportive, and the first time we talked about this idea with him said, this is a great idea, and championed it from the start. He also is the person who came up with the name, the Smokestack Effect. And I think that had it not been for Ken and his resolve, this would have been almost impossible for us to do. Kinsey Wilson and John Hilkirk, at that time John was the executive editor, he has now taken over for Ken, also made this possible, giving us the encouragement and resources we needed to make sure that we could do all we set out to do. And Linda Matthews. Linda, could you please stand for a moment? Linda is the editor who oversaw and coordinated all of this. She worked tirelessly on it. I actually wanted you to stand for the rest of the presentation. It's the only time I can actually tell her what to do. She went out and did monitoring herself and participated in this with us and really helped make this work to the extent that we had hoped. We also had partners outside of the newspaper. At the University of Massachusetts Amherst, we had two people that we worked with there, Jim Boyce and Michael Ash, who helped us coordinate all sorts of data that Brad will talk about later. And also from Johns Hopkins, Pat Bricey, who couldn't be here tonight, and Amir Subkata from the University of Maryland, who taught us all sorts of things about how to monitor for chemicals that we didn't know existed just a few weeks before we were taught how to monitor for them. Most important, I think Brad and I want to thank our wives, Brad's wife Jamie and my wife Bernie, who are here. I know that we spent a lot of time away from them during the time we were doing this, and I know from Bernie's perspective, I think she's secretly happy that I wasn't there to hound her for watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So I'm back, and you're not watching that anymore. So today we wanted to explain to you a little bit about how we came up with this idea, where we took it, and what we found, what sort of results have come. And you're going to see two videos that were shot by Garrett Hubbard and Steve Elfers that do, I think, an extraordinary job of telling this story. So I'm going to transfer over to slide 2 here, the danger.